Welcome to Blind Level Tech. This isn't just accessible tech talk. This is technology on a whole new level. We're showing you just how possible it is to live the life you want.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Blind Level Tech. I am your host, Evan Starnes, and it is, I've got to confess, it is kind of the first thing in the morning for me right now that I'm making this recording. So if I do seem a little bit, spacey, that's probably why. I don't consider myself much of a morning person, but that's okay. Now, a couple of months ago, back in March, I attended the CSUN conference in Anaheim, California, and I got to see a lot of really cool devices and mess around with some Braille displays and the guidance cane and a lot of cool little multi-line Braille displays, including the new Haptics Codex that I got to play with. And I got to I did like a live demo at the time, but I didn't include it in my BLT Byte as the audio was just a little too loud. But hopefully I might have a salvageable sound bite of this device, the new Haptics Codex, that I'll be able to splice in with this episode. Now, that being said, today I am joined by Alex Russomanno, the man behind the company New Haptics. Welcome to Blind Level Tech, Alex. How's your morning so far?
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. The morning's going quite well.
Nice.
Based here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's a beautiful day out.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, can we first start with your background? Like, tell us really about you and how you first got into, tactile graphics and accessibility products.
Yeah, so just starting with, I'm CEO of New Haptics, a small startup company, and as you noted, we're working on releasing the Codex, which is all pre-production unit of. But my background goes way back to the University of Michigan. I was a mechanical engineering PhD student there, started way back in 2012. And so I have more of the technical kind of background, at least that's how I got my start. And very early on, I linked up with my now two co-founders, but they're both faculty at Michigan, still are, but that's how I first came to know them. And they had this idea for, at the time, it was called the Holy Braille. And that, resulted in me getting involved in, at least early on, it was the technology that excited me. And then it became clear that we were onto something from that standpoint. And that's when I really got to know the community a little more and got to really start to deploy some of our technology with end users and even some key stakeholders. So I was going to CSUN way back then, just to even get the lay of the land. But anyways, I mean, really what it was is initially started with technology and then kind of grew to love the community and just the path took us all the way here to almost, like 12 years later, 13 years later. It's taken that long to kind of, from first starting the PhD to we're about to release our first product. I guess I could leave it there and answer any questions that you could bring us to. So. Oh,
for sure. But yeah, let's just consider this basically your introduction into the blind and low vision community, I take it.
Yeah, indeed.
Definitely. Well, let's talk kind of about the inception of the Codex. You said it started out as a device called the Holy Braille, which I just have to say, brilliant naming, but understand why you couldn't use that as like a final name. But I'd heard long ago, actually, back in like 2016 or 17, about a technology of a Braille technology that uses pneumatics, I think is what you would say, but basically air bubbles that cause pins to pop up as opposed to the mainstream typical piezoelectric technology or some of the motorized devices like the Orbit Reader. And when did you guys start making prototypes and kind of really start messing around with this technology?
Yeah, so you might be referencing some early press that we got when we were still in kind of the research phase and I was still a grad student. But I would say our first real kind of prototype was way back in 2015. We brought this like really small, I think it was like an 8x8 pin matrix. So it really like a tactile display that was driven by these air bubbles. And we brought it, I think I brought it to CSUN and just showed it around to a couple people. At the time, it was very clunky. And really what that was proving that you can use at least these air bubbles to push up and down pins, and people thought it felt good. It was very comparable to piezo Braille. But then we got back to, working on how to package that into something that we could sell. It's really a, portable electronic device. And that's what took so long. I mean, the concept of raising pins with air bubbles is not even entirely new. I wouldn't say we invented that per se, but the concept of being able to do that in a tight form factor is the thing that we ultimately developed and then patented and spun off the company to try to make happen. And so Codex really, the true like hardcore development of what is now embedded in Codex really happened over the last, I'd say 4 years. And
Nice.
yeah, I'd say in I guess it was 2024, we brought the first, at the time we were calling it Proteus, but really a prototype of Codex to CSUN. And that was the first time we had a kind of fully functioning multi-line display. We showed off some of the touch input capabilities of that and cursor routing with the double tap. People were very excited about that. And then,
Right.
yeah, just spent a year polishing and getting to the point where we could feel good about calling it a pre-production unit. And so that's what you felt at CSUN was that form factor is effectively what we're releasing as our first product. And we're just tuning and making sure it's good to go and is going to last in the wild and be effective at what we hope it can do.
Excellent. And real quick side note. So Codex is going to be the final name of this product once it hits the market, I take it.
Correct.
Is there potentially like a story or kind of a I don't know, a story behind the naming of Codex? I'd always wondered how it got its name. I think it's, it's unique.
Yeah, I mean, Codex is one of those. Historically, it's an early form of a book, and so to us, it represented kind of that roots in literacy, and really like as a multi-line Braille display is our primary kind of descriptor. And so when I think of Codex as well, it sort of has connotations of sort of technology. I mean, it's got that word code in it, and so it just kind of immediately rings sort of this like techie kind of vibe as well, which I appreciated. And it just like it's one of those things where you're tossing around names, and that came up, and just kind of liked the way it had that connection to the to history, and as well as just good kind of sound, makes it sound kind of techie. So
it does
nothing too much behind it, but we like it.
It definitely does. It actually, when I first heard the name, made me think of like audio codecs and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely has that techie feel to it for sure. Now, can we go over kind of a basic overview of at least the pre-production unit I saw looked really quite nice. It didn't look, I don't know. I mean, I couldn't tell it was a pre-production, but
that's great. That's what we want.
That's awesome. Yeah. But yeah, what can we go over like a basic description of the device itself and its accompanying pump box?
Sure. Yeah. So when you put your hands on it, what you're feeling immediately is a 4-line by 32 cell multi-line Braille display. And I think some of like the things that we tried to embed in this was to try to make the experience feel as much like what you would expect out of refreshable Braille displays already. So it's got a lot of the same keys. I mean, it's obviously got the Perkins keyboard. It's got a lot of the same keys you might use in screen readers. And so there's a lot of familiarity there. And then once we, no one has released a multi-line display, at least not, at the time we were really digging into it and figuring out what the form factor would be. And so there are some features about it that are specific to it being multi-line. And so we have these line router keys, which allow you to select certain lines and sort of navigate our menu system. we have a touchpad. So this is the entire surface of the Braille display is touch enabled. We have 10-point touch contact capability. And so when your fingers are on the display reading, we can actually take in all that information and process it to ultimately what, the first use case for this is for cursor routing. So, we don't have the cursor router keys of traditional Braille displays because that real estate is now taken up by Braille. And so our workaround, or I think in some ways an enhancement over that, is that we can just use a double tap gesture. So your finger on the Braille, you can leave all your fingers down. You just double tap the location that you want that cursor to move to, and whoop, it just jumps over there and you're off and running. And so in a lot of ways, it's, a lot of people are familiar with, the iPhone and other touch devices. We're very much understanding that is now, it's so prevalent. People are used to that interaction style. And so we've enabled that on our device. In addition, it's got all the bells and whistles that you would expect of refreshable Braille displays. It's got, a menu with a couple primitive apps to start. It's got, an SD card, USB, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. And then jumping ahead, you mentioned we have a pump box. So this first product is, in fact, a desktop style device. We like to joke around. It's intended to be luggable, but not portable. And
Right.
So you wouldn't just be able to kind of pull this out of your bag and use it. Something that you would leave at a workstation, desk or at work. And it's tethered to more or less like a power supply. This power supply sits on the floor. It does make a very low hum. We kind of, we joke around. It's like a little white noise machine that you got humming in the background. And so that's been a big basis of a lot of our development, is try to really make that completely out of mind and just it's not an annoyance to people.
Right.
But that's sort of the power supply for the whole device. And it's tethered to it, and obviously that plugs into a wall. So there is no battery on board. We're not operating it as a portable device and don't need that. And so in some ways it gives us a liberty to do other things that are more difficult with portable devices. But yes, at the end of the day, it is desktop based.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like a lot of these multi-line devices are kind of desktop based because they're not they're pretty large. They're about as big as a laptop. And I'd venture to say the Codex is probably about a similar form factor to either a laptop or kind of a small pizza box or something similar with with the cord coming out. Now, another thing that made me, honestly, especially as somebody that's messed around with a lot of Braille displays and things in the past, is some of the hardware that you guys implemented, including the addition of like a nice mechanical keyboard. And I've seen some multi-line Braille displays that don't even have a keyboard at all. And I do hope that the mechanical key switches and everything will be in the final production as well. Will it?
Mm-hmm. Oh, most certainly. And we were very excited about that. We are at our core sort of a haptics company, hence that's in our name, which is, sense of touch. And so I think, when you think of our display, you would hope that when those hands get on it, you have a very pleasant experience, not just with the Braille, but with the rest of the device. And so, for sure, those key inputs, the Perkins as well as other keys on there, like we want that to feel good. That's something you're using every day at work. And so we put a lot of energy and effort into just kind of going the distance, not taking shortcuts. And so, it's got mechanical keys. They're very responsive. And we got some really good feedback about that. At the end of the day, this product is definitely catering more towards like the techie people. And a lot of times, people want good feeling keyboards. And so we gave them that. Yeah.
Especially, you think about, like, I see a lot of software developers, gamers that have the, mechanical gaming keyboards. So it's nice that we have that experience on this product as well. Mm-hmm. And what would you say would be some use cases for this device, or ways that the Codex can be integrated into existing software?
Oh, yeah. So first and foremost, it's going to be, primarily used as a peripheral device with screen reader software. And so JAWS being the kind of first one that we're making sure it's good with, but also NVDA, Dolphin, even Narrator with Windows. And so all that is coming. And so the question, of course, is what does one do with multiple lines in those scenarios? And that's one that we're working closely with. All the big screen reader companies. I didn't mention Apple there. I mean, VoiceOver for sure. They're getting there, but in a lot of ways, we're looking to those leaders to lay the groundwork for what multi-line is capable of from their perspective. But we're also doing things on our end to kind of push the issue. And so fortunately, we have that hardware at our disposal to develop with, and we have a lot of good ideas, I believe, about how to best, best design that interaction with screen readers. And so we're working closely with them to make that happen. And I imagine in the coming year or two, there's going to be quite a lot of development in that realm. I know Freedom Scientific just announced their support of multi-line. NVDA obviously has that now. And so it'll be a lot of tweaking, I believe, over the next year or two to make that really work for people. And so that's first and foremost. But as well, I mean, we're going to have our own onboard applications. I think initially that suite of applications is going to be minimal, but it is, software. We'll be able to develop and deploy those as updates. And, already we have a couple games. I think maybe you got a chance to check out our kind of Wordle, version at CSUN, which
Yes.
I think a lot of people really enjoyed that. And we've got a couple more in the hopper. And yeah, I just, in terms of productivity, we just noticed that, screen reader integration is the key. I think thinking of this as a kind of workhorse, people using it for their work and even for personal use, that's going to be the means by which they're interacting a lot of the time. And so we wanted to enable that first and foremost, and more will come.
Yeah, and I also noticed it had some audio hardware on it too. So I imagine, you'll be able to make it so that you can use it as a book reader slash, multimedia device too, it sounds like.
Yep, all that hardware is built in. In fact, if you check out our website, we have a lot of information to that effect. But we're planning for everything you would hope for in a refreshable Braille display. And we've highlighted the things that we're going to have by product release, and then over time, that suite of software will grow. So.
Can we talk about the hardware itself? As kind of a geek, I've always found things like operating systems and underlying hardware to be quite fascinating. Are you guys based off of like existing, SoCs? Like, are you guys running on a Raspberry Pi, or is it kind of your own in-house built system now?
That's a great question. I mean, in some ways, I want to answer this question as like, hopefully to the user, they won't notice. It's going to work seamlessly, and to them, it doesn't even matter what's running in the background. But yeah, we've built our system off of kind of tried and true things that are out there. And so, to get into a little bit of the nitty gritty, I mean, it is Linux based. Awesome. And we layer on top of that our own software, which is user facing. And so we have our own kind of software suite that, a user is not given access, nor do we want, really, like that's not the point,
of course,
to that lower level Linux operating system. They have access to our, kind of homegrown operating system. And this is, similar to most Braille displays on the market. It's really to try to, make that user experience as good as possible, and, focus on the things that we're good at, and let the companies that are great at the operating systems and the electronic design of computers to take on that.
Oh, for sure. Love going into the nitty gritty though, because there are some techie people out there that enjoy listening or enjoy talking about OSs and and just development boards and things like that. So thanks so much for that little deep dive.
Sure. Yeah. I probably could spend hours talking about it, but
you and me
stay
both.
On task.
No, you and me both. And I do want to, for the sake of our audience, try not to go too into the weeds, but it is rather fun. How about, and can we talk about any of the challenges? What were some of the significant challenges that you faced developing the Codex? Because I know that, sometimes there are some nasty little hurdles you got to jump over with these things.
Oh, yeah. I referenced earlier just how long we've been really working on this, and that's the operating system and kind of that stuff could take hours. That would take years to go through all of that. But I mean, a couple of highlights I think are, what are the things that plague us most are the things that we just want the user to not have to think about, right? So when you think about a Braille display, even piezo ones, like of course we all know now that it's been around for so long that they're based on these piezoelectric beams. At the end of the day, though, when your fingers are on that device, what you really care about is just how the Braille feels. Does it work? And so that has been the ultimate challenge for us, is to basically like remove any user's thought of what is making that thing work and whether it's working well. And I think we're almost there. I mean, I think you got a chance to see it, put your hands on it, play around with it at CSUN. And as far as feedback from people, like that Braille is feeling really good. And it took a long time for it to get there. And there's a lot of fine tuning that's necessary to do that. And I think in this last little push here before we, fully release the product, it's about making sure that that lasts in the wild for what you would come to expect devices to last, the length of time that you'd come to expect them to last for. So 5, 6, 7 years of just daily use. And that's any Braille display manufacturer would tell you that that's a huge technical challenge, because people's hands are on this all day. There's greasy fingers, there's dirt, there's people pressing down into those pins as they should, but that's all wear and tear on the mechanical underlying pieces, and just making sure that we're just beating the crap out of this on our lab benches, and those dots don't fail, so that we feel really comfortable when we release it. Users won't have to send it in for repair regularly. It's going to work for them, and it's not going to disrupt their workflow.
Absolutely. And yeah, somebody who has seen a lot of well used and well loved Braille displays with sticking pins and stuff, I'm so glad you're doing that kind of testing, because especially the piezoelectric Braille displays, you can actually push those pins down pretty easily and they'll pop back up on you. But that basically means it's a lot easier for dust and crud on your hands to kind of collect in those in the little holes where the pins actually go. And I did find the Braille on the Codex is quite good. It's definitely close to signage quality.
One of the things that we're aware of too is that people have different preferences for how that Braille feels. I mean, piezo has been very much the standard for a long time, and so we try to mimic that as close as we can. I think we've done a pretty good job at that. The hope is that we kind of find that middle ground where people, the most people feel good about the Braille.
Right. And a lot of multi-line Braille displays that I messed with, they had this kind of a film above the dots, I think as like a way to keep them protected from maybe external elements like dust. Does the Codex kind of have that film under above its dots as well, or is it just they completely exposed?
No. That film, we do not have such a film. So the dots will feel very much like piezo displays, and for
more
sure,
substantial.
I don't think it's a secret at this point. Like the companies that are leveraging that are Dot, and Humanware with the Monarch has that as well, and understandably so. I think the mechanical elements that are raising those dots are a little delicate under the hood, and just protecting those is of utmost importance to them. We just use a different approach. So what's driving our Braille dots is itself kind of a thin membrane, which protects the underlying system from dirt and grime getting into. And so I'm not going to say that we're not going to run into issues like that. It's just different. I mean, it's a very different underlying technology, and so we have our own problems, but we're not intending to put any kind of film over the top.
No, and that is kind of a thing that I feel like makes this stand out a little bit from other multi-line Braille displays. Now, another thing that I feel like might kind of make this stand out is the pricing. So how much would new buyers of the Codex be, how much is this going to cost once it hits market?
Yeah, right now we're listing just under 10K. And so that would be the expectation once it hits the market. Not much more else to say besides that. I mean, that's our target price.
Oh, very nice. And I guess in comparison to other multi-line Braille displays that, at least from what I've seen, they're upwards of $15,000 to even $20,000 to $25,000. So I definitely think it's it makes it quite competitive for sure. So
yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I can't get into the.
Mhm.
Well, I guess I want to say, like, I don't know what's driving the cost of those devices. I'm sure it is, um, just very different approaches, different underlying technology,
Oh yeah, for sure.
and so there was a lot of decision making on our part to try to get down to that price, and um, I hope, like, there were no, in our mind, like, there's no compromises being made. I mean, we really did think a lot about how many lines of Braille, how wide it should be. We're using 8 dot Braille cells, and
Nice.
initially we had talked about maybe doing 6 dot, and so there are a lot of questions about how many dots you're putting on the display certainly is affecting its price. But just so happens our technology, I think that's one of our advantages. I mean, we have a little bit more flexibility in that it's under the hood, it's quite scalable. I mean, adding more dots is not a huge cost of material increase for us. And so really it just came down to what users are wanting. And the form factor, 4 lines, I think is a a pretty sizable amount for the kind of tasks that we're expecting people to do.
For sure.
And then also from like a clunkiness perspective, I mean, you've got the full Perkins keyboard there. As you add more lines of Braille, you are creating a device that's a little bit more clunky. It's just not quite as easy, perhaps, to navigate. And so, yeah, this is our best guess. And when we get it out there, I'm sure we'll get some feedback on it. But so far, I think people are pretty happy with it.
Absolutely. And thank you for talking about this kind of info, because I know, when it comes to competition and stuff, we don't want to, we on BLT are not endorsing any products here, and we don't want it to seem like we're trying to say one's better than the other. But it is nice that I do appreciate that you guys are doing what you can to make this as affordable, but yet, as well built and what the community wants. You guys, I understand, worked with, blind and low vision testers as well as engineers, which is,
Yeah.
I feel like that's always a good practice when it comes to building assistive technology.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, now, if you're
Whether people
unfamiliar,
always do that or not is that's the big question.
yeah.
So,
Now, if Alex, if you're not familiar with BLT, we have a little segment on here called
Sandwich of the Week.
what we like to do, because the show is blind level tech, BLT, we wanted to integrate some kind of funny and not really a technical element into the show, just to kind of keep things fun. So I'll go ahead, and what we usually do is we pick a sandwich of the week, and usually for me, it's something that I ate when I was really hungry one night and needed to figure out where I was going to order Uber Eats from for the millionth time in a row. But I'll go ahead and start
Indeed.
this off with my sandwich this week is it's a Popeyes classic chicken sandwich, mostly because it's been years since I really had Popeyes, and I thought they were pretty good, but I tried their classic chicken and I was pleasantly surprised. And now it's a new comfort sandwich because the chicken is really, really crispy. You got mayo, pickles, you can add bacon, lettuce, onions, whatever you want to add onto it. It's a delicious, juicy chicken sandwich. Alex, do you have a sandwich for BLT?
Oh man, I've got one because we're planning to do this tomorrow night. So I'm a big sourdough baker, make my own
Yum.
bread. And so
Yes.
I think Thursday we're planning to do pesto chicken paninis. And so I've got some fresh sourdough coming, bacon tonight. And then, we got some chicken, and I actually just made some pesto from the garden. We got fresh basil. So I'm pretty pumped about that.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Sourdough is probably my favorite type of bread, honestly. So that's
so good.
excellent. Yeah. Well, what's next for new haptics? What are you guys hoping to see once the Codex hits market? What are you guys hoping to do in the future?
Yeah, I mean, obviously getting that, product out the door is the, most important thing for us right now. And then, gosh, I'm just really, really excited once we do have that out in the wild and people start buying and using, just to start getting feedback. I mean, I know for a fact some of it will be critical, but that's just going to harden our approach and, make us better at what we do. And so, Yeah, it's just a long time coming. We've been at this. I mean, me personally, I have, and my two co-founders as well. It's just for so long. I think it'll be really just rewarding to get that out there and start putting it into the hands of people. And I really think it's gonna. I think people are gonna really love it, and so I'm sort of excited to hear what people think. And really, like, you don't know what people truly think. I mean, we get testers in all the time, but there is sort of that layer of like we're we know these people and we're very cordial. And so what you're really looking for is someone who doesn't know you, that spent 10 grand on your device to give you the feedback that you really need. And so I think we're not going to get that until we start selling and putting it in the hands of people that it's their job to be critical.
Yes.
It's their job to be like, I paid for this with my hard-earned money, and I want it to work this way, and you guys need to make it so. So that'll be fun. It'll be a new phase for us.
Yes, definitely. And you guys have kind of a nice little motto of designing with dignity, then iterating. At least that's what I saw here in the notes. But I feel like that's a good model to build off of, and it's a good way to get good feedback and beneficial feedback to continue growing such a product.
Indeed, so. Yeah. I don't know where that came from, to be honest. I maybe that was distilled from something I said, but that sounds great. I love that.
I like it too. So we'll definitely
stick to it. I'll add it to our webpage,
Oh, nice. I think that's good. I think it's a good, like, kind of a good little tagline kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find New Haptics, and how can people get their hands on the Codex?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously you head to our website, www.newhaptics.com. That's NEWHAPTICS.com. We've got a contact form there. Fill it in, and you can stay up to date on where we're at. And then we will be headed to trade shows for sure. We'll be back to CSUN next year, and I'm sure a couple more. And so we'll keep people updated to that. Of course, you could always reach out. That contact page comes straight to my email. So
for sure,
if you want to reach me, that's how I do it.
That's how I got you. That's how I reached out, because I'd spoken with Eloquence does not say her name correctly, actually, but not Bridge. Oh my gosh, I don't remember. If she's listening to, I'm sorry, I'm butchering your name, but that's where that was who I got to record the demo with, and I'll definitely have to get back in touch with you guys again at CSUN and try and do maybe another live demo of better quality this time. So.
Yeah, for sure. Happy to do that.
Well, thank you, Alex, so much for jumping on Blind Level Tech and for all of the information. I really hope that we can help you guys, promote the new Haptics Codex. And I personally, it's definitely on my wish list of things to get. And if anybody out there picks one up, seriously, give feedback, because these companies, small startups like this, really do thrive off of good feedback. And I personally love to see what you guys are able to accomplish with the new Haptics Codex. So you guys are killing it over there, and really appreciate you taking your time today.
No, well, thanks so much for reaching out. This was fun. Pleasure to meet you, and happy to be here.
I'm glad it was fun. And I hope that you guys had fun listening to today's episode of Blind Level Tech. If you have any feedback for us, please leave it at feedback@aftersight.org or send a voicemail to 720-712-8856. And don't forget to like and rate the podcast on platforms such as Apple Podcasts, as it does help our podcast grow, and it'll help these platforms recommend it to new prospective audience members. This has been another episode of Blind Level Tech. I'm your host, Evan Starnes, and I will talk to you guys again next Wednesday.